Hello everyone, my name is Angelina Ortega, and today I will be talking about the Seveso disaster that took place in Italy in the year 1976. Our objective is to track the events in the time that they took place, discuss the effects it had on the community as well as the people, and finally see what lessons we learned from it. Our table of contents are as follows. Figure 1 will be a timeline of events, Figure 2 understanding TCDD, Figure 3 a map of Seveso, Figure 4 neonatal effects, Figure 5 cause of death in 20 years, our summary followed by our references. Around midday on Saturday, July 10, 1976, an explosion involving TCP occurred in a chemical plant by the name of Igmisa on the outskirts of Mira, a small town about 12.5 miles north of Milan, Italy. A toxic cloud containing TCDD, then widely believed to be one of the most toxic man-made chemicals, was accidentally released into the atmosphere. The dioxin cloud contaminated a densely populated area about 4 miles long and half a mile wide, lying downwind from the site. This event became internationally known as the Seveso Disaster after the name of a neighboring town that was mostly harshly affected. It wasn't until 5 days later, on July 15th, that it was announced that a gas containing dioxide had been released during the explosion. Both gaps in knowledge and poor company communications are to blame, much of which is still critiqued until this day. On July 17th, a week later, animals began to die, an estimated 3,300. About 19 children were also hospitalized with chloracne, and many others suffered nausea and blurred vision. 2 weeks after the explosion, on July 26th, is when officials evacuated the town of Seveso, estimated then about 700 people. Pregnant women were also given the choice to abort because of the unknown effects of TCDD on fetuses, an act which was then illegal. However, an exception was made in this circumstance. To get some background information, TCP, also known as trichlorophenol, is a reactor that was then used for pesticides and cosmetics. It is now a known carcinogen in animals, and it is a probable carcinogen of humans as well. TCDD, or tetrachlorodibenzodioxin, is in fact a Class 1 carcinogen and was declared by WHO in 1997. TCDD has no known commercial use, and the last time it was used was during the Vietnam War, and it was known as the Orange Agent. Exposures include dermal, ingestion, and inhalation. TCDD also stores in fatty tissues, which will be of importance in the next slide. Symptoms include eye irritation, chloracne, a skin disease resembling acne, and possible reproductive effects as well as others not mentioned. This is a map of the area affected by TCDD. Zone A, as it became known, was the area most contaminated. The soil, as we can see, had a high level of TCDD and would later be replaced. The houses in that zone were vacuumed, washed, and repainted. Some 200 of them were demolished because of its close proximity to the plant and its high exposures. The roads themselves were also repaved. As a way of keeping TCDD out of the food chain, an estimated 80,000 animals were slaughtered, which brings us back to the storing of the fatty tissues. Now we move on to the effects of the residents in its community. A 2008 study conducted by Beccarelli and colleagues showed neonatal TSH, or thyroid stimulating hormone, which is used in most countries to screen for congenital hypothyroidism and the presence of factors causing thyroid enlargement and potential alterations in function. The results from the Seveso population showed that newborns of mothers with high body burdens of TCDD resulting from the accident in 1976 had higher neonatal TSH concentrations compared to newborns of non-exposed women. The babies from Zone A were 6.6 times more likely to have a high blood TSH level than those from the surrounding area that was not contaminated. Consani and his colleagues conducted another study in 2008 looking at the cause of mortality for Seveso residents in the past 25 years since the accident took place. This is a graphed version of their findings, which included elevated mortality from lymphatic and hemotopic cancers in the most polluted zones A and B. There were also suggestions of mortality increases for several other cancers, rectum, lung, in comparison to areas not affected. In summary, the delay in the response to the explosion was the main contributor to the disaster and its big impacts. Igmisa has since been sealed and demolished. It was buried in 2 tanks along with the remains of the animals slaughtered and the soil with the highest degree of TCDD. Seveso Oak Forest Park now sits on top of it. Since then, there have been directives set in place and named after Seveso. These directives focus on prompting the adoption of legislation on the prevention and control of such accidents. It has been amended twice, 1996 and 2012, since its original date of 1982, to include lessons learned from other disasters, as well as giving citizens the right to access information and justice.